Well, we are in Revelation chapter 8, verses 6 through 13 tonight. This is now halfway through a whole, we've gone 6 months in Revelation so far. We're in chapter 8. And so far where we've been right now, you had the Lamb came, he was the only one worthy. He came and took the scroll from the hand of God sitting on the throne, and he started opening the seals. He's the only one worthy to open the seals and open the scroll. And so he's opening the seals, and one of the features of him opening the seventh seal of the scroll is that it appears once you open the seventh seal, and we've had an interlude in the middle of things in chapter 7, it appears to be the gateway of a new set of judgments that God's going to bring on the earth. You open the seventh seal, and then you have these 7 angels with 7 trumpets, like a whole new set of judgments about to happen. Back to Revelation 8:2, he says, I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. That's what's happening. 7 angels have been given 7 trumpets, which are judgments of God that are going to follow what's happening next. This great anticipation of silence in heaven as God is going to answer the prayers of the saints and judge the world. It is significant that this is exactly the same case, and I didn't think of this last week, but it's exactly the same case of Israel when they were in slavery in Egypt. Think about it. God, the angel had the censer, the golden censer, and the prayers of the saints, and he offered them up to God. Very similar situation in Exodus chapter 2. It says the Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. Very similar to to Revelation chapter 8, or chapter 7, where the angel is operating as sort of like a high priest, offering up these prayers of the saints to God, because these Egyptians or these Israelites are praying to God. They cried out, and he heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham and with Isaac and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. It's very similar here. The prayers of the saints go up before God, and he remembers his people. He remembers they're his people, and he's going to judge the world because of his people, the way they've treated his people, their wickedness. This time it is going to be him judging the whole world because of their wickedness, not just the Egyptians. The whole world is going down. You'll see it. It's kind of scary. It says in Revelation 8, verse 6, this is where we're going to start tonight. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to sound them. The trumpets you would have in the Bible sounding for several reasons, a variety of reasons. One would be you use a trumpet to call people to an assembly for a special occasion. There was a trumpet to make for the King Solomon's ascension to the throne of David. You have the trumpet in the second coming of Christ. You have the trumpet that gathers Israel for battle. You have a trumpet that's particularly to signal God's coming in judgment. You have a trumpet that's sounded in the Bible to wage war on Israel's enemies. Now, this last biblical reason that I said is the theme of these trumpets, these 7 trumpets. God is judging and bringing destruction on his enemies with these trumpets. These 7 trumpets are going to be sounded, and God's judgment is coming upon his enemies and the enemies of his people. That's what's happening here. Now, it starts off with these first 4 judgments, these first 4 trumpets, which bring natural disasters in the natural world. It's going to be messed up because of these trumpets. Cataclysms happening. And then the last 3 judgments are on mankind, people. The first one's on nature. The second set are on man. And there are a lot of symbols in here, and I'm not sure I know what they mean. I don't know if anybody knows what they mean. I've said that before almost every week. Symbolism is hard to interpret, and all the scholars that I read, none of them really know what it means either. They'll say, well, some suggest this, some suggest this could mean this could mean this. You go, well, what does it mean then? I don't know, but a lot of symbolism in these things, and I'm going to try to look at them if we can. So here's verse 7. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down upon the earth. A third of the earth was burned up. A third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. All right, this first angel blew his trumpet, and all of a sudden, disaster, hail. Now, I don't know if it's literal hail. I kind of tend to think that it is literal hail. It's coming down on the earth, and it's going to burn up a third of the earth. It's got fire coming with it, too. Hail and fire. And it burns up. It's a heavy atmospheric disturbance, and it's let loose. Now, some people have suggested that this hail and fire are like cosmic results of like volcanoes. All the volcanoes of the earth start breaking loose, and lava goes up, and all the hail comes down. Fire. That's what people are saying. That's what some of them are saying. I'm not sure. But it does remind us of the plagues that God sent to Egypt when he heard the cries of his people. The people cried out to him, and he heard their cries, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and with Jacob, and he was concerned about his people. And so he sent Moses to Egypt with these plagues. And one of them is in Exodus chapter 9, 23 through 25. Moses stretched out his staff toward the sky. The Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed down to the ground. So the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. Hail fell, and lightning flashed back and forth. It was the worst storm in all the land of Egypt since it had become a nation. And throughout Egypt, hail struck everything in the fields, both men and animals. It beat down everything growing in the fields and stripped every tree. So this is very similar to that, except this is a global hailstorm. And it's got fire coming with it too. Probably much like the lightning flashing back and forth. Now, I do have an interesting thought here too, and I don't know where I'm going with this exactly, but we saw back in chapter 7, God protecting the 144,000 until those servants are sealed and protected from the terrible judgments that are coming. And we had this uncountable number of redeemed people who came out of the Great Tribulation. That's what's going on in chapter 7. Now, obviously, the 144,000 were kept from harm, and then much of the rest of them were likely killed, not the 144,000, but the uncountable number of people were killed in the tribulation. I don't know how many of them were killed, how many of them were harmed, but there are people who were likely killed because they were Christians. But in the Exodus, in Egypt, the plagues, God protected all of the Israelites from it. This is remarkable. The judgments came on Egypt, but where the Israelites lived, it didn't hail. It says in Exodus 9:26, the only place it did not hail was the land of Goshen, where the Israelites were. So I'm just throwing out an idea, a thought that I had. It sounds similar. What might be going on here. God's going to judge the world, but he's still going to protect his people who are in the world. I don't know. It didn't say it. I'm just thinking God protected Israel in Goshen, and he's protected the 144,000 in chapter 7. And there are a lot of people who are going to come out of the tribulation who worship in the Lord, uncountable number from every tribe, language, nation, and people. So I'm wondering if God may be doing something similar to like that here. But this also sounds similar. In the book of Exodus, he mentions this nation or this king, this entity called Gog. Anyone ever heard of Gog? I don't know who it is. Some say it's Russia. But God's going to judge Gog when he attacks Israel. And I believe because it's something that hasn't happened yet, it's an event that's still left to be fulfilled. I believe it's going to be fulfilled in the tribulation. That's what I believe. Gog is an entity, a nation that's going to come against Israel. The nation Israel, the physical land of Israel, is going to happen in the tribulation. And this is what's going to happen. Exodus 38:22. I will execute judgment upon Gog with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him, and on his troops and on the many nations with him. Well, Gog is going to be hailed on, and many nations with him are going to be hailed on when they attack Israel. And I think in Revelation you have the very exact same thing. The hail and the fire are coming down. Except in Revelation, the hail and the fire are coming down on nature. Not necessarily people, although there will be people caught into it. This is happening on the natural earth. 1/3 of the earth. 1/3, a whole third of the earth is going to be burned up. Now let me just go ahead and see if I can get perspective on the globe. You take the globe, you have the whole western hemisphere. That's North America and South America. That's about 1/3 of the earth's landmass. What if it's us first? Hail and fire are going to come down and burn up the entire North and South American continent. I'm just thinking out loud. I think that. Or it could be the whole continent of Africa. That's about 1/3 of the landmass of the world. The whole continent of Africa, it's a large continent. 1/3 of the continent. It's going to be burned up. Now, I don't know if it's symbolism or literal. I really can't say I know for sure. But it says all the grass is burned up. So 1/3 of the trees are burned up. 1/3, I would say 1/3 of all the vegetation is burned up on the whole earth. And 1/3 of the whole earth is burned up. Which if it's the Western Hemisphere, we're gone. It's all be messed up around here. And it says all the grass is burned up. But then I find this interesting. During the 5th trumpet, which is chapter 9, these locusts come out. And it says they are told, verse 4, they are told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. So if all the grass is burned up in the 1st trumpet, how is there still grass around during the 5th trumpet? Think about that. Anybody? All the grass is burned up, and yet the locusts are told not to harm it. But I do know this, and I don't have an answer to that question. It is puzzling to myself. Truly it is. But I do know this. There's a lot of widespread damage happening to the earth. This 1st trumpet, we're still on the 1st trumpet, and widespread damage on the planet. A lot of vegetation is destroyed. And if a lot of vegetation is destroyed and 1/3 of it's burned up, even the soil can't regrow and make new growth happen. It's going to be terrible. And it says it's mixed with blood, which I believe is symbolism for death. Likely going to be a lot of people and a lot of animals dying when this 1st trumpet judgment is fulfilled. It's going to come down where if 1/3 of the earth is burned up, how are people going to survive? A lot of people are going to die. A lot of animals are going to die. Now, the earth is not completely destroyed. Only 1/3 of it is destroyed. But you would have all kinds of spin-off catastrophes from 1/3 of the earth being destroyed. Things like if a natural world is damaged, people are in danger because if the trees are damaged and the vegetation is damaged, where are we going to get food? You need plants to have food. You need grass. You need grass to feed the animals. What do the cows eat? If all the grass is burned up, what are the cows going to eat? So all kinds of damage is going to happen to the earth because of this first plague. And I believe this too. The people who are affected by this plague, which is pretty much everybody, only 1/3 of the vegetation is destroyed. Only 1/3 of the trees are destroyed. Even though all the grass is burned up, they're going to know, the people who this is happening to are going to know that this is from God. They're going to know that God is judging the world, and there's no way they're going to be able to say this is climate change. This is God doing this. I kind of think that when this happens, they won't be having Earth Day anymore. Earth Day festivities will be canceled this year. So that's the first plague. Whenever that happens, during the tribulation, whatever day that starts, whenever that first trumpet sounds, all this devastation is coming on the earth. A third of it, a third of the vegetation is ruined. And then you have the second trumpet, chapter 8, verse 8 and 9. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, something like a huge mountain, it doesn't say a huge mountain, but like a huge mountain, was all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. More massive cataclysm. The second trumpet blows, and all of a sudden you have coming out of the sky, which I believe sounds much like a large meteorite or asteroid hurling to the earth, breaking through the atmosphere, coming through the atmosphere, and it lands in the sea. So the first trumpet affects the dry ground. The second trumpet affects the oceans. The second trumpet is a judgment coming down. It's going to affect the whole earth, but it's coming down on the oceans. And I don't really have any idea how to interpret or figure out what this is. I think it's perhaps a meteor or an asteroid of some sort like that. You know, you see shooting stars, those are meteors. One comes in, a big one comes in too hot, it'll come through the atmosphere and just keep coming down. And it's got to land somewhere. A lot of times meteors or asteroids that come into our atmosphere, they're so small, they look big from us, but they're not that big, and they burn up before they hit the ground. The Earth's atmosphere burns them up as they come in. This one is huge. This is like a mountain, like a large mountain, huge mountain. And my guess is it hits the ocean, lands in the sea, maybe like an impact of maybe 100 nuclear bombs going off at the same time or something. And you would start having these massive tsunamis happen all over the globe. Radiation coming from the when it came out of space and landed, whatever was on it came and landed. All kind of contaminants spreading into the sea all over the globe. And I don't know how many animals there are in the ocean. I really don't. It blows my mind. There are billions and billions of fish. My guess is, it says a third of them are killed. A third of the fish, a third of the sea creatures. The sea has got all these animals in it, and many of them are going to die. Billions of fish because of this impact of this asteroid with radiation in it hitting the sea. And when it hits the sea, you have huge waves. It's going to come in. It says it destroys 1/3 of the ships. Now, I know this. The United States has about either 10 or 11 aircraft carriers in our Navy, which is a huge ship. It's like 1,100 feet long. Huge. We have 11 of those in the U.S. Navy, so at least 3, maybe 4 of those are going to be destroyed. That's just our Navy. That doesn't include all the smaller ships in the Navy. All the other ships of all the other navies, a third of them are going to be destroyed. That includes all of those navies of the world just severely decimated. What would it be like if you lost a third of your Navy? Your military is over. Can you even wage war anymore if you wanted to? I don't know. A lot of commercial shipping will be destroyed. You know how many tankers there are out there on the seas every day, carrying those big containers and oil tankers? Wiped out, decimated severely. A lot of cruise ships, big cruise ships with lots of people on them too. There are lots of cruises out there going on every day. A third of those are going to be wiped out too. Just a terrible, terrible event. This big thing that's like a mountain falling out of the sky and landing in the ocean, killing a third of the fish, a third of the animals in the sea, and a third of the navies, a third of the ships. It's going to mess up everything. I don't even know how to measure it. Can you imagine what the economies of the world will be like when a third of all the shipping containers that were out there are wiped out in one day? What's it going to be like for the nations when a third of their navies are wiped out in one day? What's it going to be like when everybody says, I'm hungry, you want some fish? And you go, we don't have any fish. Why not? Because a third of them got killed when that large mountain thing landed in the earth, in the sea. A lot of people are going to starve. It'll be a bad day on the earth because of the second trumpet. It is the third trumpet, verse 10. The third angel sounded its trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter. Now, I don't know exactly what this says either. It says a great star. I'm not sure what the source is, but I'm thinking this is probably something very similar to what looked like a large mountain that landed in the ocean. This is something like a similar thing, a meteor or an asteroid type thing that came through the atmosphere, and probably not because it was a smaller size than the big one that landed in the ocean. This one probably busted up as it was coming into the earth atmosphere, and it was dissolved and disintegrated as it entered the atmosphere, and all the debris from that disintegrated star, that thing that fell like a torch from the sky, landed on all the various inland bodies of water. All the rivers, the lakes, the ponds, the waterways and the earth, all that stuff, all that pollution from that star landed on all those things, and it polluted it, contaminated that. All kinds of space pathogens, bacteria, virus, pollution, and it ruins the drinking water for a third of the earth. So you already have a third of the earth burned up in the first one. You have a third of the sea creatures dying because of the second one, and a third of the navies wiped out because of the second one. And now you have a third of the rivers and streams and lakes and ponds ruined. It says this thing is called wormwood. Now, this is the only place in the New Testament where this word is used 2 times in this text. The name of the star is wormwood, and the third of the waters turn bitter, and that's what the word is. It means bitter. It means poison. Now, the Old Testament has the word wormwood in it 8 times, and it was a bitter herb that was used to make poisons, a bitter herb that was used to make things nasty. And it says in Jeremiah chapter 9:15, therefore this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel says, see, I will make the people eat bitter food and drink poison water. So this wormwood means bitter. This wormwood means poison. So the debris from this great star falling out of the sky, landing on the waters, landing on all the inland waters, poisons them. Has a lethal effect. Whoever drinks the water that's been poisoned by this bitter contaminant will die. So the third trumpet is another bad day on the earth. I'm like, imagine, we're just in chapter 8. A third of the earth is burned up with hail and fire. A third of the navies, a third of the animals and the sea creatures die from this large asteroid meteor that hits the sea. And now you have this other contaminated meteor type thing, great star, affecting the drinking water. Just a horrible, horrible day. You also got to think of this too. If the rivers are contaminated with poison water, a lot of irrigation to crops come out of rivers. A lot of farms rely on taking water out of the stream and out of the river and just moving it up and irrigating their crops. Not having to wait for rain, they irrigate it with the river. What's that going to do to the crops? Poison water that'll kill you if you drink it. Now it's ruining your crops too. No, it doesn't say that in the text, but I'm saying this is a side effect of this kind of a thing. It's a bad day. And you know what's bad about it? You have to have water to survive. If you go with I forget how many days, 4 days without water, you can die. Not very long. But it's not over yet. You have the fourth angel. Verse 12, the fourth angel sounded this trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, and a third of the night, and also a third of the night. So you have these judgments of God, which were focused on natural things on the earth, have now been focused to the sky. Nothing's happening on the earth this time, but the fourth trumpet sounds, and everything in the sky is different. All the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the light that they give is affected. This one is related also to one of the plagues in Egypt. Exodus 10, 21 through 23. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the sky so that the darkness will spread over Egypt. Darkness that can be felt. Wonder what that feels like. Darkness spread out over Egypt, so darkness, and you can feel the darkness. So Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else, or leave his place for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. So the fourth trumpet unleashes darkness on the earth. There's no light from the sun a third of the day. So 24-hour day, half of it's light. Well, now a third of that is dark. It's going to be dark a lot. And I mean dark, not just dusk, but dark. I think it'll be strange to look at. Also at the nighttime, the reflection you see off the sun, of the moon, which is basically what the light is, the sun reflecting off the moon, a third of that's going to be dark too. And I believe it's going to have a debilitating and strange effect on people. It's going to mess things up. You're already feeling, you've already had three bad days in a row. First 3 trumpets. I don't know if these are successive days, but I know it's close together. 3 bad days, and now this fourth day is going to make it even worse because you can't even see what's going on a third of the time. And think about this. What's that going to do to the weather patterns? If a third of the day is now dark, what's that going to do to the temperature of the earth? It's going to be cold. It's going to get colder. Climate change is not global warming, it's global cooling now because it's going to be dark. It'll be a lot cooler where you live. Now, some people like that, but I won't. Jesus said in Luke 21, talking about the end time, there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. It's just going to be signs in the heavens. The sun, moon, and the stars, they're not going to shine. A third of the stars are going to disappear. It's going to be weird to look at. You're already scared. You're already terrified by the plagues that have already come, by the first 3 trumpets, and now you got this one, and it's going to get cold. Think about this too. I'm just thinking out loud. It's going to be scary. It is scary. You ever been somewhere where all the power goes out? It's dark. I mean, there's no street lights. All the power's out. And I think maybe in this world that's happening here in the tribulation, when this fourth trumpet sounds, There might still be on the earth places where you have power, although I don't know how much power is still left after the calamities that we've already had. But somewhere you might have power, so you'd have some artificial lights. But I don't think that's going to make anyone feel any better, because you know that God's judgment on the earth has come and there's no way to get out of it. At least there's no way to get out of it that you're willing to take. There is a way out, but no one wants to go that way. It says in Revelation 9, which we'll get to that someday, the rest of mankind that were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. They did not stop worshiping demons and idols of gold, silver, bronze, stone, and wood, idols that cannot see or hear or walk. Well, there's opportunity. You see these judgments coming. You would say, God, save me. But no one's going to do that. They still want their idols. They still want to worship things that are false. So these judgments are coming by God on the earth, and you know they're happening by God, but you still don't want to repent. And then you have verse 13, which is not a trumpet. I think it might be part of the fourth trumpet, or like an interlude between the fourth trumpet and the fifth trumpet. It says, and I watched, and I heard an eagle that was flying in midair call out in a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the trumpet blast about to be sounded by the other three angels. Something symbolic maybe. I'm not sure what the eagle stands for, what it means, but you have this eagle that can speak. And he's got some apocalyptic words to say. He flies around and he calls out with a loud voice. It says a loud voice. This eagle's shouting out everywhere he's flying around in a loud voice, and he gives this ominous warning of doom for men for what is about to come. I don't know if it's a warning to say, y'all get out of town, something bad's about to happen, or if it's just if it's a warning to say, too late, you're doomed. Because that's what this is. This is a warning of doom for what's about to come. It's bad for the people of the earth. It's rough for the nations of the earth. It's rough for the economy of the world. It's rough for the physical and the emotional health of men. People are going to be in bad shape when these next three trumpets start to sound, because you haven't seen anything yet. What we've looked at now, these four trumpets that have brought all this calamity on the earth, are just the tip. It's just the surface. We've just gotten to the surface. It's about to get deep. And this eagle's crying, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Y'all are about to get bad, bad news. It's going to get worse. Jesus, where he said the signs in the sun, moon, and stars on the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea. Then he says this in verse 26, men will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming on the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. This is getting ready to happen. What Jesus said in Luke 21 is about to happen right now. This eagle's telling you, doom, woe, bad day. Bad days are coming for the people of the earth. And we'll look at this not next week or the week after that, because I won't be here. I'm going to go up and see my baby, or my grandbaby, with Lisa, me and her going. But we'll look at this in 3 weeks. Chapter 9, or the rest of chapter 8. Let's pray. Father God, we do thank you for your word. Thank you for revelation. Thank you for teaching it to us. Thank you for revealing it and leaving it for us to read, to study. Lord, I pray you would help us understand what these things mean. We know that you're going to judge the earth, and it's not going to be a good day. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be worse than anything anyone's ever seen or heard of. Lord, I do pray that you would use us to reach people for the gospel so that, God, they would know you and have salvation and be spared. Do that for us, I pray. Father, I pray you'll give us a good night going home. Give us a safe week. Bless us. Give us good things. Show us your favor. Bring us back together again Sunday so we can fellowship with each other, that we can enjoy worshiping you, that we can enjoy hearing your word proclaimed to us. And I pray you'll do that for us for Jesus' sake, for it's in his name I ask it. Amen.